All right, so we'll go ahead and kick it off. I would like to welcome and briefly introduce our co-host panel for tonight's session. James Boese, Lauren Brierley, Stephanie Maenza, Elizabeth Moreau, and Vance Van Krieken. Let me let some folks in here. By way of introduction, James is a senior solution consultant at HigherEchelon. He's an experienced solution architect and Salesforce certified administrator with a diverse professional history of working in the healthcare, transportation, and consulting industries. Lauren is a junior business analyst at HigherEchelon. She's an Air Force military spouse, a Maravis alum, and a 2023 graduate of the Hiring Our Heroes Salesforce Fellowship. So if you have questions about that, please feel free to ask her. Lauren completed her fellowship with HigherEchelon and was subsequently hired, which is awesome. Stephanie is a senior solution consultant at HigherEchelon. She's a Navy veteran and certified human resources professional with 11 years of human resource management, strategic workforce planning and analysis, staffing and recruiting, and employee relations support in the federal government. Elizabeth is a business analyst at HigherEchelon. She's an Army veteran with a diverse background in consulting, real estate, sales ops, and healthcare. Elizabeth is PMP, Scrum Master, and Scrum Product Owner certified, in addition to her 12 Salesforce certs. She began her journey in Salesforce in early 2022 with the Hiring Our Heroes Salesforce Fellowship. Put some more folks in here. Vance is the Business Development Manager at HigherEchelon. He's an Army veteran with over 5 years of program, product, and people management experience. Following the Army, Vance focused on business development and leader sales, supporting the DoD as they seek to modernize legacy IT systems. It is awesome to have y'all co-hosting office hours with me. Thanks so much for joining. Welcome.
Thank you.
If you could each take a moment to introduce yourselves maybe and share your Salesforce stories, that would be great. James, do you want to lead us off?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks for the introduction. James Boese. I've been with HigherEchelon since March, so a little over 6 months. Prior to this, I worked for a transportation monitoring company as their Salesforce solutions architect. Prior to that, worked for a small boutique Salesforce consulting firm specializing in medical contracts. So that's a little bit about my background.
Awesome, thanks, James. Who wants to go next?
I'll go.
Go ahead.
Vance Van Krieken here, business development manager at HigherEchelon. Been with HigherEchelon for about 4 months. Started in May. Prior to that, I was at Salesforce for 3 years as an account executive covering the DoD. Prior to that, I was in the Army for 6 years. Got out as a captain. So if you have any specific questions around sales, feel free to let me know throughout the course of this time.
Great, thank you, Vance.
Awesome. Yeah, I can go next. So hello, my name is Lauren Brierley. I'm currently a junior business analyst at HigherEchelon. So like David said, I came to the company through the Hiring Our Heroes Salesforce Fellowship. I came into that program as a military spouse. I was in the 23-2 cohort, so just got hired on a few months ago by the company. So if anyone has any questions about the fellowship program, definitely feel free to reach out.
Great, thanks very much, Lauren. Elizabeth or Stephanie, who wants to tackle next?
I can jump in real quick. So I joined HigherEchelon in May of this year. Previous to that, I started my fellowship with Deloitte in 22-3 last year. So we finished up in December. Previous to that, before 2022, I didn't really know what Salesforce was, though I was using it in real estate. I worked in local and federal government positions and then in the Army as a medic. So I have a little bit of varied experience and still learning where I want to be when I grow up. So,
as we all are. Over to you, Stephanie.
All right. So hi, thank you for having me. I've been part of HigherEchelon for a little over 2 years, and prior to that, years in the Navy as a human resources officer. My last tour was at the Naval Academy, where in 2020 we started recruiting students using the Salesforce platform. And around the same time, I began the process to transition from the military, learned about the Hiring Our Heroes and their Salesforce Fellowship program from my Transition Assistance Program, or TAP class. So I matched with HigherEchelon, started the fellowship 2 days after leaving the service, and it's been a great 2 years.
That's fantastic. So lots of folks leveraging the fellowship. So by all means, if you do have questions about that, this is the group to ask. Thanks so much for the intros. For those that are joining for the first time, I always like to briefly kind of go over the purpose of office hours before we open the floor for questions and we get down into all the details. So these sessions are an informal get-together for gathering with both military trailblazers and allies. Everyone is welcome to explore non-technical Salesforce career and branding related topics in order to help you achieve your professional development and career related goals. So for this next hour, this is your hour to participate in what we like to call collaborative mentorship. So everyone on the call is encouraged to step up and help answer questions from your perspective, which will of course provide additional diversity of experience to the answers given. Please keep an eye on the chat window during tonight's session. I and others on the call will share a lot of great information, including learning, networking, and information pulled from LinkedIn and other sources. If you'd like to ask a question at any point during today's session, this is your session, so please feel free to do so. And if you don't feel comfortable speaking up, go ahead and post your questions in chat, and I'll do my best to monitor the hands raised and the questions as they come in. Then finally, as you probably guessed, tonight's session is being recorded. So if you'd like to share an attribution-free comment, let me know before speaking, and I will make sure that it is edited out of the final recording. Awesome. We'll go ahead and kick it off. And let's see. I don't think I actually introduced myself at the beginning of the session. So if you aren't aware, I'm Dave Nava. And this particular session, first time I haven't done this in over 100 episodes. Tonight's session really marks another installment in our ongoing partner spotlight series. And so if you're out there and you're wondering what it's like to work at HigherEchelon and maybe how to join the team, this is the session for you. So hopefully you weren't sitting through the first 7 minutes of this session wondering why you were here, but that is why. So with that, if you've attended more than one session, you've probably known that we have hosted a number of partner spotlights over the years, really as a way to introduce notable companies in the partner ecosystem and introduce them to current and prospective Salesforce professionals. And so when I do that, I always like to start with an overview of the company from the perspective of those folks that work there to ground everyone's understanding. And so in the spirit of that, if you could each share a little bit about HigherEchelon's history as you're aware of it as a company and how it's evolved over time, either during your time there or over the course of the company. And it's funny because when I stop talking, there's always this awkward silence where people are like, well, should I talk first? Should I talk first? So anyone can talk at any point. And I will be quiet now and let the awkward silence ensue until someone brave speaks up.
So the little bit about the history of HigherEchelon, it was founded in 2009 as a gaming and simulation solutions, also human capital services and government services to include cyber services at Fort Gordon. Those were the core functional areas of HigherEchelon. The Salesforce division was formed in 2017, and the two co-founders are Paul Maggiano and Joe Ross.
Awesome. Appreciate that clarity. All right, and so now that we know a little bit more about HigherEchelon, if you're out there looking for a role right now, or you've been in the role of a job seeker, you know that company culture is, of course, an important differentiator when it comes to job searches. It's obviously always better when your personal and professional values align with those of the company that you're working at. And so from each of you, how would you describe the culture at HigherEchelon? What really stands out to you?
I can jump in. I mean, since I've been working here, I think, one of the attractive things about working with HigherEchelon is that a lot of the time, again, through, hiring our heroes programs, we have a unique opportunity to work with a lot of public service sector type contracts. So, working with Army, Navy, Air Force, it really is a rare opportunity to be able to work in those types of environments. They're extremely competitive, fast paced, and I think everyone in this ecosystem, they find that to be a challenge and enjoy that challenge on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, thanks, James. I know I work with the same organizations, and actually I've worked with HigherEchelon for a number of my personal accounts with my reps, and it is an exciting place to work. You don't typically experience the same use cases that you do in commercial, or if you do, it's with a different twist on it. So it's always kind of fun to see what the latest challenge is, for sure. Who else?
I've worked in a couple of different areas, more civilian focused or more corporate focused, and being in a company such as HigherEchelon with such a large and diverse group of military veteran spouses and military affiliated people, It's great to have that camaraderie and that connection with people, even though we're remote workers, we still have that connection. And there's a lot of great mentorship that happens without question, without ask. A lot of us started brand new with no experience, especially through the mentorship program and through hiring our heroes. So you can always feel that imposter syndrome, like, what do I know? What am I trying to prove? What can I bring to the table? But there's such great mentors here at this company that you're going to learn on the fly. And within a year, I mean, what you learn from where you start to where you are is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I appreciate that. One of the things that I looked at when I was looking for companies early on was, how many military trailblazers are there? How many folks from similar backgrounds that I can touch base with, connect with, and so that if I join the company, I'll have someone that kind of understands where I'm coming from and can act in a mentorship in a role like that. So I appreciate that, Elizabeth.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, over 50% of our employees are veterans. And then we have the veterans.
That's huge.
As well, yeah.
Awesome. Stephanie, what about for you?
Well, something else, definitely third on the camaraderie, helped me transition smoothly from the military service. But something else I love about HigherEchelon is that we have our mission to optimize organizational excellence by transforming people, processes, and technology, but we also practice that internally. Like, we have a human capital services branch, that people part of our mission, that hosts mindfulness sessions on Mondays for employees who can attend. And our Salesforce leadership recognizes that importance of and works to prevent burnout. So with my HR background, that was a breath of fresh air, having leadership who cared for their people.
Yeah, for sure. I know for me in my current role, one of the things that I like about Salesforce is that we are sustainment minded. And so I do ocean conservation projects throughout the year, and they provide me a way to take off time from work and devote time specifically to that. And it's paid time off. So it's really great that I was able to not only come to a company that's doing well in the ecosystem, but also that kind of mirrors back some of those same values that I find important. What about for you, Lauren?
Yeah, I'd say that was kind of one of the main reasons why I chose HigherEchelon as my fellowship company, was just the people who I had met everyone's super helpful. And even during the fellowship and even after I got hired on full time, if I have any questions, I feel comfortable going to many different people just to ask questions. So it's definitely a very helpful company culture that everyone wants to help each other out. Like I said, we all understand, you kind of started as a newbie and you're trying to learn and you're trying to grow. So it's definitely a good place to be as far as the people who are at the company, and feel comfortable talking with everyone and getting help where you need it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And yes, Rebecca, the fellowship is available for transitioning service members and spouses these days. But I saw that Iris joined, and so if you have questions about the fellowship, Iris is your go-to person. She can answer those. So please feel free to reach out during the session and ask those questions if you'd like. So at this point, I want to pivot to chatting about a little bit more detail what it's like to work at HigherEchelon. And I'd love to know, during your employment journey, what caused you to choose HigherEchelon over the other companies in the ecosystem? And I think, Elizabeth, I think it was you that mentioned that you completed your internship with Deloitte, and then you pivoted to HE. So that's interesting. Can you start off with that particular question? Like, what caused you to choose HE as the organization that you ultimately went to?
Yeah, so I have a large family. I currently have 4 children. I joined Deloitte, and they were still in the remote phase. So the fellowship, everything was remote. That's what my assumption was going into it. A month after completing the fellowship, it was going to 1 week a month, and then they were trying to up it to 2 weeks a month of travel. With 4 kids, that's almost impossible to do. So I needed to find something that's more flexible for my schedule and my life with my family. HigherEchelon is going through a huge growth spurt, and they still are. So it just happened to be at the right time. It just coincided perfectly.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. And then we're going to dig into HigherEchelon's growth spurt and kind of what that may mean for some of the folks in the audience and how we can get more information in just a moment here. Vance, what about for you?
Well, for me, so at Salesforce, I learned, well, when I got out, I joined Salesforce, right? I was there for 3 years. I started off as a BDR, then I became an account executive. So at Salesforce it taught me how to become a salesperson, right? It taught me sales. So it taught me how to sell, which is great. But in the government contracting space, there's another factor to it, which is government contracting. So to really round out myself, I wanted to go somewhere where I could learn the government contracting side of it, specifically around of RFIs and RFPs, the proposal package, the whole thing, the contracting vehicles, all of that. So I wanted to go to a company, specifically a system integrator, and then being on the DoD team at Salesforce, it was a perfect fit. It was a company I had already worked with. I knew the reputation. They had a reputation of excellence that we still do, right? It was full of veterans. As a veteran myself, I felt very comfortable with the team. So those were the big reasons why I joined HigherEchelon.
Yeah, it's funny as I reflect back on kind of me joining Salesforce and joining the DoD team specifically, and I was like, oh, I served for 20 years. I should have some insight into this. And really, yes and no. Like, I could speak the lingo, but government contracting is completely different, and the whole RFX, so RFI, RFP, RPP, the whole 9 yards is a different animal, which I'm slowly finding out. So definitely good to get some grounding in that specific area. James, what about for you?
Yeah, so prior to HigherEchelon, I was working for a transportation monitoring company, and in that role was managing their Salesforce org as their solutions architect. And I guess the unique thing about contracting is that you're constantly working on new projects, and you get to work with new technologies and broaden your horizons. And I feel like for one, that was very interesting to me. Sort of felt like I was in a rut using the same tools over and over and over again in my prior role, and that wouldn't really allow me to have the professional development that I might in a contracting role. And on top of that, when I first started speaking with HigherEchelon, their growth was obviously mentioned, so a lot of opportunity there to learn new things, but also be a part of a really fast-paced and growing environment. So those were things that I found pretty exciting in a new role, and that's why I chose to join.
Awesome. Yeah, it's different in advance. I'm sure you experienced it. Different companies within the ecosystem, based upon their size, have different challenges. And so, a little bit later in the session, I'd love to get your take on kind of some of the skill sets that you, aside from obviously the government contracting piece, that you learned at HigherEchelon that added to the value that you're able to bring, independent of what you learned at Salesforce, because it's a different, the partner ecosystem is a different experience, obviously. So we'll dig into that a little bit later. But I appreciate that, James, and Advanced Elizabeth. Over to you, Stephanie.
When I was going through the Hiring Our Heroes Fellowship program, interviewing with other companies, I was struck by HigherEchelon's appreciation of my military service, and they already had like an idea how I could contribute, despite being at the very beginning of my Salesforce journey. HigherEchelon works with DoD organizations, and the opportunity to maybe further my support the military community by combining my military experience with Salesforce skills was very exciting to me.
Awesome. That's great. Lauren, if you could close us out on that question.
Sure. Yeah. So I know one of the main reasons, like I was saying, that I chose HigherEchelon for the fellowship and then ultimately wanted to sign on with them, I'd say is just because of the way that everyone, like all of my coworkers, collaborate and everything. It's just a very welcoming environment. And like I said, just having everyone being fully remote, it's sometimes hard to kind of make connections. Like, you don't have those like water cooler moments that people talk about in the office. So I think being able to collaborate and make connections with your coworkers, and I found that was very easy with everyone who I was talking to at the company. So it was definitely a place that I wanted to join because of that culture as well.
Yeah, and it's, you hit on the next topic, that sense of community, because for me specifically, like I've been on my team now for about 2.5 years, and there's folks that I still haven't met, right? And I may never meet just because they're geographically separated and our sales patches are in different areas, and so we don't necessarily go to the same conferences. But yet I still feel a sense of connection with them, and we get along really well, even though we've never actually been in the same physical space at the same time. Which kind of leads us to my next question. Given that remote and distributed work environments really are the norm in many companies these days, how does HigherEchelon foster that sense of community and belonging?
I would say it starts with leadership. I mean, one of our core values is commitment to excellence. And Joe Ross, he's a football background. He played football at West Point, and we were on a call with him today, a HigherEchelon team call, and he leads like a football coach, but he brings a commitment to excellence to what he does, which inspires that from everyone else. And then on top of that, the leaders are good people. They're ethical. They're moral, and that inspires. That in me, and I think in the team.
Yeah, seeing some of those ethical principles reflected back is definitely encouraging, I would think. And Raymond, I did see your question in chat, and we will jump on that next. Just laughing at making a comment. All right, Elizabeth, over to you.
Yep.
What are your thoughts?
So though travel isn't required for most positions, if you want to travel and meet up with your coworkers, it's highly encouraged also. They had Northeast Streaming just recently, and they had those regional conferences. They had basically any Salesforce event if you want to go to. There are some in person. There's a wedding gathering, I think last week was there in Michigan, that a bunch of our team members went to. So they do encourage you to meet in person, grab coffee if you're in the area, and get those connections face to face if it's something that fits in your schedule.
That's very cool. Awesome. James, what about for you?
Yeah, for me, I mean, totally agree with Vance and Elizabeth. One thing that I've found unique about this is that although you're remote, what I found is the camaraderie amongst coworkers, and not only with working on the projects that they're working on, but the specific technologies that you may be interested in. So, for instance, if you've got sort of experts when it comes to flows or to writing code, and you're interested in learning more about that, I've found with this company, which has been pretty unique, is that there's constantly being Microsoft Teams channels and Slack channels created for people that are interested in those. So if you're interested in learning more about coding, you can join a coding call that happens every other week. Or if you're interested in learning about flows, you can join that call that's every other week. So it's really a sense to be able to join a group of like-minded people and all learn together from people, who are experts in that one area or another. So I found that to be very unique. And again, it's a really, really cool, unique thing that I haven't seen in the past.
Yeah, that's cool. As someone like myself who's passionate about continuous learning, I'm always looking for enablement opportunities. So it's great to hear that HigherEchelon offers that. And we're going to dig into that a little bit more as we go through our topics for this evening. But we'll move on here to Stephanie. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, to echo Vance about the leadership, like our leaders are also very engaged with the employees. They celebrate birthdays and anniversaries. We get emails and cards from the co-founders for those milestones, and they ask about vacations and families. So it's as if we were just passing in the hallway and they could say, happy birthday. Our communication is so easy and very engaged.
Yeah, I like that kind of like a small town feel. And I noticed that when I started working at Salesforce, even though I really enjoy it, and we do our best to remain connected through Slack and through a lot of the BRGs or ERGs that we have, it doesn't have quite the same feel that it did when I was with a smaller partner, where again, we were still remote. Like I didn't see everyone, but more of a, like I said, small town feel where everyone kind of knew each other. And you had those close-knit relationships. So that's really cool. How about for you, Lauren?
Yeah, I'd say just like we said, with the leadership and just communicating. So we'll have weekly like all hands calls, and I think just like having like leadership will usually choose like one or two people to call out who have really shown, like you said, organizational excellence, or have really shown one of our company's values in some way, and call them out for it so that they can be recognized and show that. So I think that's another way that kind of fosters that leadership and community there as well, being able to see people be recognized and help to want to be able to do better yourself as well. So, and then we also have like quarterly all hands meetings too, which we actually had one earlier today. So it was cool to see how the company's going and growing, and being able to see all the different people on the call as well, which you normally wouldn't see in your day-to-day activities.
Yeah, that's cool. It's great when organizations leverage virtual resources to bring everyone together. We're going to pause for a question by Raymond, who asked it a few minutes ago. And he said, are there any other military/veteran mentorship programs that HigherEchelon works with for new Salesforce talent? He's been out of the service for a few years and unfortunately does not qualify for hiring our heroes. And then obviously someone responded that there's the K2 University Salesforce Fellowship. Unsure if it's still up and going. And again, anyone on the call can answer up if you're aware of any fellowships that are accepting folks. Megan?
You're on mute.
You're on mute, Megan.
Of course I am.
There we
So
go.
I have been hearing rumors, and Dave, maybe you can help me out, but one of my old mentors through the Military Spouse Fellowship Program hit me up a few weeks ago before I got accepted at HigherEchelon about Salesforce specifically, like big Salesforce, looking to start a military fellowship, because she wanted me to interview, but then I got on HigherEchelon, so I didn't do it. So do you know anything about that?
I see Iris shaking her head up and down, so I'm going to pause and see if Iris
Oh,
has
Iris,
more
I can't
details.
see you, dear. Sorry.
I don't know anything like definite, but I've seen that they are also trying to create their own kind of fellowship program, just to be able to aid more where it doesn't have as many of the constraints that some hiring our heroes have because of just where we are. But I know that it's definitely coming. I know that they're building a track around it. Unfortunately, I don't have any concrete evidence, but I would really, really reach out to Salesforce military talents recruiters like David Nolan and David Anderson. Don't tell him I got it wrong, David.
It's not record. Oh, wait, it is recording.
It is recording. You'll have to cut that bit out. So Dave Anderson, I would reach out to him, and Mike Nolan. Don't get the big boy's name wrong. And reach out to them, ask them if there's any opportunities, and just see where that program is at for this moment. But I know it's coming, just not when.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Iris. I've heard rumblings as well, but it's just a good reminder to me to reach out. So I can do that as well internally. And I'll touch base with Catherine Clark as well to see where it's at in the development stage. So great question, Raymond. And anybody else have any insight?
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not sure who gets accepted to the program, but right now we also do have another intern from the Vets 2 PM program. So I'm not sure if that also is only for transitioning veterans, or if it does include people who are transitioned out and it's been a couple of years, but it's Vets, the number 2, and then PM. So I know we have an intern on our Salesforce side from that program right now. So might be something to look into.
Awesome. Thanks, Lauren. Appreciate that.
I did see a question from Amanda about our scope of practice, or what we kind of specialize in and what type of clients we have.
Oh, thanks for catching that.
We do have other clients outside of DoD and outside the federal government. I work on a couple projects that are somewhat healthcare focused, but not health cloud focused, if that makes sense. And I know that we are pursuing other contracts that are outside DoD, more state, local, maybe universities, things like that. Advanced might have more insight into what we pursue outside of the DoD or military.
Yeah. I kind of want to address, David, real quick, before we circle back to Raymond's question. Does Salesforce military, is that for veterans, or is that just for folks that are currently in the military, if they want to go get service?
Yeah, the program overall is for transitioning service members that are in the military, veterans, as well as spouses. And it also applies to our allied nations, right? So New Zealand, Australia, Great Britain, UK, Canada. But facets of it, in one particular case, like the Hiring Our Heroes Fellowship used to be available to the same group of folks. But obviously, with budget being what it is, nowadays, it is simply active duty transitioning service members through the DoD SkillBridge program, as well as spouses. And so these internship programs that come up throughout the ecosystem are, they'll come up, they'll be available for a few months, they'll go back down, they'll come up later. So it is challenging to kind of keep track of what the current state of internships is. I would remind folks out there too that just because there's no formal internship program available from a nonprofit or other agency, you can do the legwork and reach out to companies on your own and set those up for yourself. And that's kind of what I did when I was transitioning. There was the DoD SkillBridge program entity, but there was no at that time Salesforce suppliers. So I essentially went out to the partner ecosystem. I said, hey, listen, here's the program, I'm available. And I was able to find several companies that were interested. And then from there, I just narrowed it down. Iris, go ahead.
I've seen people using a lot of creativity to land these opportunities now. And like, again, my favorite quote I'm hearing is that if the opportunity doesn't knock, build the damn door. You know what I mean? Don't wait for somebody to create a program. Raymond, I just had a look at your LinkedIn and you have plenty of skill, which I've seen people with less skill get great opportunities. So reach out to a company, use LinkedIn. The power of LinkedIn is incredible. Find a company, possibly seeing if there's a veteran or a military person there and reaching out to them saying, hey, may I have some time? Having that conversation. As David, everything I'm speaking, I've learned from this platform, but creating that relationship and then asking to view your resume, and for that referral. This is what this ecosystem is about. It's about supporting people to land those opportunities. So don't be shy, especially with your skill.
Yeah, it's a great point, Iris. If there's any ecosystem that favors taking initiative and being forward-looking and acting, it is this one. So you can literally create opportunities for yourself that don't exist just because you thought them up and then went after them and created them yourself. Great point. Vance, did we I wanted to circle back to you to see if we had captured all your thoughts.
Yeah, sorry, can we repeat the question? I knew it was addressed to me. I was thinking about the Salesforce military thing though.
I was just seeing if you could answer, what other areas outside of DoD and military contracts do we pursue and what type of work in those areas?
Yeah. Everything. I mean, we even have some commercial, so there's public sector and there's commercial, right? We even have some commercial deals that we've closed and we've won, but federal, state, and local. So, without kind of getting into too many specifics, I want to be careful because I don't want to talk about things that we're currently pursuing and things that we've recently. It's a touchy subject, but high level, federal, state, and local, everything. Our bread and butter is DoD, but we pursue it all.
Awesome. So I'm hearing that if regardless of your interest area within Salesforce, I guess use case and industry, HigherEchelon probably has a project that's working on it. We're tangential to it. So
yeah,
Elizabeth. Yeah.
No, it's okay. That's good.
Yeah, Elizabeth brought up a good point in chat. Just wanted to call attention to a Catch a Fire volunteer match website with opportunities. And there are other similar websites like that if you're looking to get that initial work experience that you want to put on a resume. And then obviously you can go back to the standard, right? Super badges, building apps and sharing that throughout the network, which is one of the things that I leverage as well. All right, so Carrie asks, I've noticed a trend with grants lately. Can you address why that might be amping up? I don't know if you are working on any grants management or grants related projects now, or if you have insight into that.
I'd like to say that our Salesforce division was very forward thinking when they started pursuing and trying to build their niche within public sector solutions. Being that it's a newer offering and specializing in that early on, I think was a great thing for the company. Grant management is a huge part of the public sector solution package, which puts us in a great position. I don't know why state and local governments or universities are pursuing more grant management. Maybe it's probably just a manpower issue where it's a lot of paperwork and they're trying to digitize it because they haven't done that in decades. Trying to optimize their time and their hours, their money, in my opinion.
And it could also be because we're putting we as in Salesforce is putting an increased focus on grants because we've released obviously that capability within public sector solutions. Mm-hmm. So we could be creating some of that buzz. But Elizabeth brings up a great point. companies do well by specializing in new product areas or niche areas that maybe other companies don't have expertise within. So that should tell you that you as an individual can also do the same thing. Right. So if you want to go out and be a public sector expert, public sector solutions expert, that will put you in a different category than maybe someone that doesn't have that experience and will make you attractive to certain employers. And if you're not aware of what public sector solutions is, without going into too much detail, it's essentially, it's a different set of licenses and capabilities that cater to public sector use cases. And so think things like, well, grants management, right? Licensing, permitting, inspections, but it's also functionality that's been kind of packaged in there. So OmniScript and some other capabilities. And it's all put together because it addresses specifically public sector use cases. And so as Salesforce, and by extension, the partner community doubles down on our industry clouds and our industry areas, this is one of those particular capabilities that meets those needs. And let's see, and Nitin is asking, do you need folks to be in the DC area? So probably a remote work question.
I think certain roles, I'm not sure exactly, but I think certain roles, there are some on-site physical locations, but for the most part, most of our Salesforce team is all fully remote.
Yeah, I think we currently have 2 folks that are in the DC area. The rest of us are remote across 21 states. Sometimes there is on-site requirements for specific projects, but most of the times these projects can be done remote.
Awesome. And if you haven't noticed, David Albright is backing me up by posting the comments that I should have been posting in chat all along. So thanks for that, Dave. And wanted to call attention to one more comment from Elizabeth, who posted the HigherEchelon career site link in chat. So if you want to go take a look at the positions that are currently available, please go ahead and do that. We are going to
this and say I referred you, unless you want to put Elizabeth referred you. Or Lauren, fine. Everybody else, the people who actually work there, you get the referrals.
Salesforce referrals on this call.
Employee referrals, the way to go for sure. All right, so we'll tackle one more question, then we'll do a quick break for our group photo. So before we go into that photo, we talked about what initially brought you into HigherEchelon, which is interesting. I wanted to focus or dive a little bit deeper and kind of explore what keeps you there, right? So if you've been in the ecosystem for a bit, if you have a few certs, you probably noticed that you get job offers fairly frequently. So it's the responsibility, obviously, of the company that you're currently working at to continue to make you want to come to work every day, through the culture that they're providing, through the resources, through the benefits package, all those combination of things. So for each of you specifically, what is it that keeps you at HigherEchelon?
I can jump in real quick. I like the constant learning that we're doing. In my previous positions, I learned Salesforce. I started doing configuration through Trailhead. I never really got hands-on, though. I was more stuck and pigeonholed into a functional role. Being here at Salesforce, you can get your hands into all sorts of aspects and areas, from configuring to doing the discovery sessions, working on everything throughout the whole project. And you wear a lot of hats, and that is fun for me, and it's helps me learn.
Yeah, that's cool. One of the things I noticed when I was at my first company was a small boutique firm. So you have to do more with less. And so it really provided an opportunity for you to do kind of sample from multiple different roles and contribute to the overall growth of the company, which is a really cool, unique thing that you don't always get to experience, especially, some of the larger companies who already have those well developed and established processes and departments. So that's a great point, Elizabeth. Lauren, what about for you?
Yeah, I think kind of agreeing with Liz, where there's always something new to learn and something more to do. So I think always just being challenged is one reason why I'm really enjoying being at HigherEchelon, because it's just I'm definitely not bored. There's always a lot of work, a lot of things to do, a lot to learn. So, and it's always encouraged. And like I said, with like the benefits package they have, they encourage you to sign up for additional courses that the company will pay for. So that is another great benefit that everyone gets. So right now I'm taking an additional flow course in my free time. So it's definitely something that there's always something new to learn. So I definitely enjoy getting all the challenges and learning as much as I can.
Yeah, that's awesome. Never a shortage of new things for sure. What about for you, Stephanie?
And it's what we talked about earlier, that culture, that sense of family, everyone willing to help each other, and that HE cares for its people.
Awesome. Well said. James.
Yeah, so I, think initially, I know typically consulting firms focus a lot on certifications, and you have 20 certifications. And coming from somebody who had more experience, less certifications, I think being given the opportunity to prove myself and not necessarily just say, oh, look at the certifications I have, but actually the work that I can complete, that I think that alone showed me that there's a lot of faith that our company puts in its employees and the work that we accomplish. And not only that, but the people that obviously that they have brought on the team, I've learned so much about so many different areas of the Salesforce ecosystem, from people just being on projects with them, asking them questions, speaking offline about questions that you may have. Everybody's been extremely helpful, and on that road to get more certifications and become qualified in different areas. There's tons of people and support out there, and that's something again that I find very unique, that people are just so helpful on a day-to-day basis. So that's certainly something that keeps me here.
Yeah, always good to feel like you're supported in your role, for sure. Vance.
So culture, we talked about that.
Yep.
Impact. Being in a small company, you have the opportunity to have a big impact. So that's awesome. And then growth through the support that they provide and the encouragement to get, like for me specifically, I need to get 2 certs a year at least, right? So those 3 things. That's why I stay.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate each of you going into those respective areas. It paints a broader picture of HigherEchelon. We're going to go ahead and take a quick pause and do a group photo. Totally optional. If you want to stay with your video muted, you can go ahead and do so. But if you'd like to come off video mute and be in the picture, we'll go ahead and share it on social media, and you can share that with your network, so we can always be branding. Do that. All right. All right, let's go ahead and pause comments just for 1 second so my face makes it into the picture as well. And I'll give you a count of 3. We'll go 3, 3, 2, 1. All right, my mouth was open and everything. That's all right. We'll move on from there. Not the worst picture I've taken. Okay, so let's see here. We talked a little bit about some of the use cases and some of the projects that HigherEchelon works on and in around. In the context of Salesforce product areas, what do you typically find yourself interacting with? And I ask because, as folks, and we're going to get into this here in a little bit, what is HigherEchelon looking for? But it's helpful to know what products you run into on the day-to-day. So when folks are thinking, hey, what's the next cert that I should get? Or what do I really need to be, fully prepared for in a role as a consultant? I'd love to know that. Like for me, I found myself initially like Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, Experience Cloud, and that was it. But you're in a different industry, so I'm curious to see what you typically work with from a product perspective.
Every project is totally different, and it depends on what we're bidding on, what we win, and where we're going. Currently, my projects are focused. One is focused on managed services, so I'm more in their Service Cloud. Another one is starting, and we'll be using Experience Cloud and Sales Cloud. And another one is going to be using Amazon, or was using Amazon Service Voice Connect, along with their Sales Cloud. So it really varies. I know HigherEchelon is focused in on Omni Studio and PSS, but that's more once you're in the partner ecosystem to get into the partner learning portal for PSS.
Gotcha. So some of those growing niche areas. Awesome. Thanks, Elizabeth. Let's see, Lauren, what about for you?
Yeah, I agree with the anything to do with the PSS. Like we said, that's a core core work that the company gets. So PSS and anything to do with that. So Omni Studio, Service Cloud, Experience Cloud are definitely very important, and you'll see them on a lot of different projects. But I'd say definitely also like Experience Cloud. I've seen that in pretty much every project that I've been on so far. So like there's always going to be the back end of Salesforce, and then most of the time there's going to be some sort of UI client facing part to the project. So I think Experience Cloud was definitely a good one for me to get some hands-on experience and learn as well for the different projects.
Yeah, Experience Cloud's a different animal. Like you can configure really well on platform, and then you touch Experience Cloud, you're like, wow, this is completely different.
Yeah.
So that's good. Stephanie, James, Vance, anything else that you noted that other than was mentioned that you typically touch from a product perspective?
No, I mean those cover the big ones. I always have sort of thought of, like you said, sales, service, and experience cloud. Those are great foundational certs to start with, and then obviously getting the more niche ones, if you will, with Omni Studio and PSS. But I feel like at least for me personally, since I've been here, every project I've been on has had some sort of service cloud, and then as well as Lauren said, some sort of customer facing, outward facing layer, and that's usually Experience Cloud. So that's a big one for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and it's interesting to hear Elizabeth mention AWS because it's something that I'm specifically seeing as well in my work, a growing need for me to be knowledgeable in that area. And David touches on it briefly in his question, so I'll bring that up. Is HigherEchelon seeing any use cases for artificial intelligence, machine learning, or GPT? Obviously, all those are the big rage right now.
Yes. Well, complicated answer because there's Einstein or Tableau CRM or whatever they call it now. There's that, right, which is sort of AI, but we're leaning into the AI. But currently, we do not. Correct me if I'm wrong, anybody on the team, but we do not have any AI solutions that we're deploying at the moment. Mainly because DoDs are big. DoDs are our big customer, and Salesforce, we're just not there yet. But
yeah, and right. So if you've been kind of tracking Dreamforce, you've seen that we've released Einstein AI, which touches Service Cloud, it touches Sales Cloud. There's and we'll touch probably at some point all the clouds here. We're rolling it out, but within DoD, there's security and compliance regulations that you have to meet that are very stringent. And so, if you're familiar with how Chat GPT, for instance, works, it reaches out. It's an interface to reach out to touch a large language model, which retains your data. And so, if you're the government, you may not want all these queries being retained by the large language model because there's a risk there that somebody who's not very friendly to the United States could hack into that LLM and get access to that data. So, but it's interesting because this ties into what Elizabeth was saying. There's other companies out there that provide safe ways to access these large language models, such as Amazon. And so, how can Salesforce partner with some of these, or repartner or deepen our partnership because we're already partnered with Amazon to leverage that in the interim, right? So it's an interesting question, and we'll see more of that obviously as we move forward because it's not going away. AI is definitely the next revolution. Dave shared some resources to skill up in AI. Appreciate that. All right, and if I've missed your question in chat, let me know. I think I got everyone. So we'll go ahead and move on. And it's a quick one. You touched briefly on other practices at HigherEchelon, right? So you talked about the history of HigherEchelon and how it started with gaming. What are some of the other practices that are currently at HigherEchelon other than Salesforce that that you could briefly talk about to give folks an understanding of what other talent that HigherEchelon may be looking for?
I mean, I know there's the gaming and simulation branch of the company. I think Vance, if you can touch more on the other, I know the enterprise and tech, the cyber and security. What else is there? I know there's a few different more.
Yeah.
There's,
So there's Salesforce implementation and consulting, which is mainly everyone here. There's gaming and simulation solutions, human capital services, government services, and cyber, which is mainly out of Fort Gordon. I dropped the link to our website, which kind of goes into detail about those. But since everyone here mainly focuses on Salesforce, we don't really have that much interaction with the other divisions.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, and I appreciate painting that additional picture. We've got about 9 minutes left, so we're going to move on to the next topic, and it's really opportunities. I think, you mentioned, or someone mentioned earlier in the session, that HigherEchelon is still hiring, so I wanted to dig into that a little bit. In general, right, what opportunities are currently available if you had to just kind of provide a broad overview at HigherEchelon that you're aware of?
I know I helped some of my fellow military veterans that were laid off from another company recently. So when we were looking through the listings together, there was positions for a Scrum Master, Senior Consultant, Section 508 tester, developer, architects, a little bit of everything, tending to be a little bit more experienced, 2 to 4 years most likely. We're pretty heavy on the newer folks in the ecosystem at this moment, but we are exponentially growing. We're about to double again from our call that we had earlier today.
Okay, that's great to know. And if someone was, say, in that 2 to 4 year experience bucket, and they were interested, what's the recommended path for getting an employee referral?
Rob Gifford. I don't know about referrals. Maybe you can all fight for them if you want, but any one of us, you can put our names on. But Rob Gifford's the Salesforce recruiter.
Okay.
I can drop this link here.
So
too.
reach out to him.
For the referrals, reach out to any one of us on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I dropped my LinkedIn. We'll connect with you, and we could help with that. At least help with that process.
I added all
Awesome.
your LinkedIn's on there, so everyone should be able to pull it from the message or the notes here on the side.
Thanks, David.
There's a couple. There's another weird requirement. You have to be an American citizen, by the way, to come work for us right now. So I know that sounds kind of weird, but like I had some really good people like hitting me up that I've worked with and other stuff, but they're here on visas, like work visas. They don't count. It doesn't matter how many certs they have or how good they are. Security clearance requirements. It's good if you have one.
Yeah.
You don't need it, but it's good. But also too, yeah, you do need to be physically located in the continental United States as well. So I know if anyone's looking to get a job and go work in Europe, it's definitely not at HigherEchelon, but I know it's definitely anywhere in the country. That's fine.
And on the, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, James.
I was just going to say on the security clearance requirements as well, there are certain projects that do require security clearance. So although you may not need one to start, the ability to obtain a security clearance is pretty important.
In kind of context for that, Salesforce right now is IL5 going towards IL6. Once Salesforce gets IL6, I mean, it's going to open the floodgates to what Salesforce can provide to especially the DoD customer, right? So those security clearances, if you have a TS, SCI, Poly, right, that's huge. And Salesforce is going to need that. They even need it now. And so the partners will need it too. The system integrators will need it as well.
Yeah, and piggybacking on that note, if you're watching this later on YouTube and you're currently in the service and you have a security clearance, one of the best things that you can do for yourself is to renew it prior to getting out, so that it's good for an extended period as you're going through the transitional period and doing your job searching. Don't let it expire, because there is a monetary value associated with that, and will open you up to additional opportunities within the Salesforce ecosystem and also without. Let's see, there was a question from Rebecca. And so obviously, I think you mentioned earlier that you're not looking for newbies right now, but in the future, obviously you will be, and or in the past you have been. So what is typically available when you do open the hiring for folks that are new to the ecosystem? What kind of roles?
I mean, I'd say just speaking from experience. So I was a newbie through the Hiring Our Heroes fellowship, and I got hired on as a junior business analyst. So I think that's usually kind of the route that you start out as a junior business analyst and then kind of work your way up from there, unless there's a different path that you're planning on taking, like getting more into project management or maybe like into sales or something. But at least for the most part, I think a junior business analyst is the starting point.
I think there was a couple of fellows that might have turned into the project management side of things after the fellowship recently. But I think I can't speak for HigherEchelon, but my opinion of what they do and how they source their talent is they love the Hiring Our Heroes program. And I think this is the largest cohort that they've had so far with 3 at one time. And I don't see them ending that anytime soon and using it as a good source.
Yeah, and so the different verticals of a company, the sales team or the business development team is just me and this other gentleman, Andrew, right now. So it's small, but the majority of our work, we're HigherEchelon, we're a system integrator, right? So we integrate Salesforce. So the majority of our employment opportunities are going to come from the integration tasks, like the junior business analyst, those sorts of things. So if you're going to stay in the Salesforce ecosystem, get your certs, get certed up. The more certs you have, I mean, that's going to be a big value. If you want to stay in the government space, learn government contracting. I think that would be really big. So those are my recommendations.
Yeah, and that dovetails nicely with the question that I was getting ready to ask, which is, if you're maybe junior or you're looking for a position that may not be offered currently at HigherEchelon, what are some things you can do to prepare? To Vance's point, you have certifications, right? Learning about government contracting, security and compliance. Anything else, Elizabeth, Lauren, Stephanie, James, that you can think of as folks kind of prepare if they're interested in HigherEchelon specifically?
I would think personally, just based on some of the projects I've worked on, there's a strong focus on security, given that we work in a lot of DoD contracts. I think that would be a very strong area to focus because a lot of the requirements that we configure, have a pretty strict security and data model. So I would say that would be a good area to focus on.
Yeah, and this is just advice for any kind of job searching. Just network. There's only 250 of us or 300 of us at HigherEchelon. You can go on LinkedIn. You can find us all. Network like crazy. Make connections.
Yeah, it's a great point because when those jobs do open and you're interviewing, it always helps if you've already met the folks and connected with them and had conversations. Then it's not getting to know someone for the first time. You're a recognized entity, and it makes it much easier. I wanted to pivot back really quickly to a question that Gregory asked about, residence requirements for applying to roles at HigherEchelon. Was that U.S. meaning all 50 states or just continental only? Can you be from Alaska, Hawaii, and still be eligible?
I'm not sure exactly. I believe it's continental, but I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, team. I don't know if we have anyone in Hawaii or Alaska or if it's allowed. I'm not sure.
I think it's any 50 because it's tied to our ability to pay employment taxes internationally. So we can pay them within the US, but we can't do it internationally.
Awesome. All right, we've got like 1 minute left. So I wanted to just ask a closing question and get your thoughts on it. And it kind of dovetails back to, some of the culture questions that we talked about, or some of the culture talk earlier. If you could share really briefly your favorite moment while working at HigherEchelon, that could be a customer connection, it could be a successful project in general terms, a community event. What was that moment for you? That was your favorite at HigherEchelon.
My first flow was an aha moment that was gently led to in the right direction by the architect I was working with, and it was a great learning opportunity.
Awesome. Anyone else?
Yeah, similar. I mean, not only, finishing up projects, that's fantastic, but I mean, those aha moments, I think in your professional career, especially when it's something you've been, working on for a long time, And going back to the point that I had made earlier about working with a lot of different people from different backgrounds with different expertise, being able to apply what you've learned from those people, whether it be in a flow or code, what have you. Those are great wins. I'll put it that way, big wins.
Yeah, I do love the aha moments, specifically when your flow actually works too. That's always great. Stephanie, what about for you?
Not so much an aha moment, but a favorite was I did a demo for a process that I had participated in when I was working in uniform. So I was like, oh, yay, I get to work with this again.
That's cool, connecting it back. Yeah, I've gotten to deal with customers that used to be colleagues, so it's always nice to be able to kind of go back to your roots. Vance, what about for you?
Yeah, sales is a little different, I guess. I just closed a deal, or the team closed a deal with the 97th Air Force Wing with one of my prior colleagues, which was pretty fun for a student information system. So that was great because it was a quick turnaround.
Yeah, very cool. Awesome. Lauren, what about for you?
Yeah, I think not really exactly too much of a moment, but just like seeing a project come to close, especially one that I was shadowing during my fellowship and then got to be hands-on later in the fellowship. And then once I got hired as well. So, and then seeing that project just come to a close and seeing the client super happy and seeing the final solution come through. It was a really cool moment to see all of it come to fruition and be a really great solution for the client.
Awesome. Yeah, happy clients are the best. Very cool. We are at time, folks. Before we close, I do want to thank James, Lauren, Stephanie, Elizabeth, and Vance for co-hosting tonight's session, spending the last hour with us, educating us on what it's like to work at HigherEchelon and what future employment opportunities might be there. So thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.